So I was a really big WWF wrestling fan in the 1980s. I'm not ashamed to admit it. And I particularly liked the tag team division. So I think about chemotherapy and radiation as Afa and Sika. These were the wild Samoans. In the 1980s, they were at the top of the tag team division. They were champions for 431 consecutive days. They won 21 tag team divisions championships worldwide. So they were effective for their time, but they were crude, really crude. They, in interviews, used to grunt rather than talk. They picked their nose, and they were known to eat raw fish whole in front of the camera. So although it doesn't make you proud to be a fan, they were winning for a time. Now the next generation of Samoan wrestlers was much more refined. Anyone who knows anything about wrestling will recognize this guy. This is Jane "The Rock" Johnson. And he also was quite successful in the realm of wrestling, but he was much more sophisticated in advancing his career. And so I'm much more proud to say that I'm a Rock fan than a Samoan fan, but they were both effective for their time. And as we've gone to the next generation, it's gotten better and better. And so it is for systemic therapy. Chemotherapy is effective, it does its thing, but it's not particularly refined. The targets that it hits within the DNA are not particularly specific. And the movement, thankfully, thanks to all of our scientists that work very hard in the lab and all of our clinical scientists that work very hard in the trials, we've been able to get a little smarter, a little more specific in our targets. And so any patient who has ever had an ER positive, estrogen receptor positive breast cancer, knows that we have a targeted pill that can actually deal with the fact that your cancer expresses that receptor, and that pill specifically targets the estrogen receptor positive disease as opposed to globally targeting cells within the cancer. So that helps us to tailor things a little bit better. The same is true if a woman has a HER2 positive breast cancer, where we know a specific protein that is involved in the propagation of cancers. We can target that specific protein, again, thanks to the science, and get a much more refined approach to treating cancers. So that is certainly the movement, and it's a good one, but I think that the future direction is what I like to call the bespoke approach. Now, I love nothing more than seeing a man in a bespoke suit, perfectly tailored to his specific proportions. And I think that every cancer patient needs a bespoke suit. And thankfully, we're moving in that direction because of genomics, proteomics, metabolomics. These are all scientific advances that allow us to look at patterns of expression of particular proteins, gene expression, and metabolites, and come up with signatures that we can use to predict who will do well, who might not do well, and what particular treatments we can use to affect those outcomes. So this complicated picture is a heat map, and actually we can have a year-long course on everything that goes into getting this information. But this is what has moved us into the realm of bespoke medicine, tailored medicine. In this picture, if you look vertically, each row is a patient. And if you look horizontally, each column is a particular gene expression that we know to be important or prognostic in cancer. So the tailored approach is one in which you take a patient's cancer, you send it to a laboratory, they do very sophisticated genomic analysis where they come up with what your expression of particular proteins or gene products are, and they do all these statistical analyses, clustering things, very complicated algorithms, but eventually get to this picture where you can look at a patient's cancer, see how her expression falls within this heat map, and say whether she's at high risk, which is the red, or low risk, which is the green. If a patient is at high risk, you need to be a little bit smarter, a little bit more aggressive about her treatment. If a patient is at low risk, maybe you can spare her that chemotherapy. Maybe you can spare her that radiation. This is the movement toward individualized, highly intelligent cancer care, and I'm excited to say that it's the direction that we're getting closer and closer to. So I hope that we've been able to give you a little flavor of things. And I think as doctors, we are encouraged with the direction of the science and the impact that we will be able to make in the future to improve cancer outcomes. And I hope that as cancer survivors, you also will be encouraged by all of the advances that we're making in the realm of cancer care. Thank you.
All right, we have one more session here before we have